what are the steps necessary in order to get a game together and build it?
Yeah, the first part that I recommend people do, which is actually often overlooked, is
the following is a conversation between me and Justin P Barnett. Justin is a YouTube content creator that teaches people how to get started with the virtual reality game development journey, teaching Unity, coding, and he's also created the VRCreator Academy, where he literally takes you from the beginning all the way till the end, becoming a VR game developer. So if you guys are thinking, about becoming a developer and start your career, work for a company, or you're thinking actually about building your own virtual reality video game and bring it out to the market, well, then the following conversation might be very, very valuable to you. Justin, hi.
Hey, how are you doing?
All good. Thanks for coming on. I'm excited to talk to you. I've been following your channel now for a while. I find your channel very inspiring, and I love that you're putting a lot of time and effort into your videos of educating people in this new uprising space.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
So, I'm curious to dive into, your backstory a little. Seen that your parents are both software developers as well. So I guess you have been growing up with this stuff. When did you start really with, VR, XR, AR, really developing?
Oh, gosh, probably 4 years ago now. So like you said, I grew up with both my parents are software developers, and just growing up in that environment, you kind of just learn how to code by osmosis at that point. I did take some coding classes in high school, and then my major in college was software engineering. So, but then anytime I had a question about anything, I would go to my parents, my dad, and be like, hey, how do I do this? And then he would walk me through it. So it was nice having like a couple personal tutors in like software development. And then that translates over into VR pretty well, because it's just C#, and that's the language I had learned originally. I first actually started doing the YouTube channel, and I was just doing like web development stuff. So you won't find any of those videos on the channel anymore. They're all private. Okay. But I had posted like 5-10 videos about like how to do stuff, like how do you add a footer to a website, and how do you make different like little things in websites and whatnot. And the issue I was running into was there was already 100 YouTube channels out there teaching people how to make websites and whatnot. So it wasn't really interesting in the YouTube algorithm's eyes. And then also to me, it was kind of like, I knew I wanted to do YouTube and I knew I wanted to make the videos, but I didn't really have that niche yet. And so I was just kind of like, oh, I'll try this and, go with it for a little bit and see how it works. And then I went to Five Below, which is just a store where everything's $5 or less. And picked up one of those little like plastic VR headsets that you just slot your phone into the front. Yeah. And, in YouTube, there's like a little button to turn it into VR mode. And so I did that and watched a couple of YouTube videos in VR with this little like super cheap little headset. And at that point I was just like, okay, this is like the future. Like this is just my phone and it feels really realistic. It's very immersive, all the VR buzzwords. And I was like, yes, I'm sold. This is it. And then my natural progression was kind of like, okay, well, how do I make my own stuff? So I ended up getting the Oculus Rift at the time and playing around with it, just making some different games. And I was like, well, I jumped like right into VR. And then I was like, okay, well, I need to take a step back, learn how to make just normal games first. And then I can bump that back up to VR. And I've kind of just been doing that for the past 4 years. And then the YouTube channel has kind of just been all the tutorials that I wish I had when I was, learning. Because at the time, it was like just Valum and VR with Andrew had like a couple like videos, and I think it was it. Dilmer might have had a few too, but like 2, maybe 3 YouTubers teaching people how to make VR games, and all of them were outdated at the time, all the videos. So I was just kind of scouring the internet, piecing together stuff, and I was like, well, I might as well like make a video about how to do this after I've already learned it, and tried to stay relatively consistent with that. And then here we are, like 2-3 years later, and now we've got a YouTube channel and a course, and I am friends with all these other VR YouTubers now, which is cool. And yeah, it's kind of taken off from there.
Yeah, awesome. Congrats on that. Like, yeah, it's amazing to see how you're learning and so fast can already like switch this into teaching others, and I think you're learning a lot from that as well, right?
Oh yeah, that's honestly one of the best ways to learn is, you can learn something really quick, but then teaching it is a whole different level of understanding.
Yeah, and you're learning a lot from that as well. I've been a teacher myself in surfing a lot in the past, and I've learned a lot from it. How different was the transition for you from knowing how to code on websites towards like gaming? Just for your knowledge, I have no idea about programming at all, other than having watched some videos around it, but I've never been in the trenches actually coding myself. So yeah, how different is that?
Well, website building is completely different than you doing some kind of like, almost, I guess you would call it a service level type system where you're calling methods and they're doing background tasks, which in the enterprise world you would call doing business rules, and then sending it back. And so if you're a coder and you code like service level architecture or even like database, then that'll translate relatively well over to game development. The front end, like making stuff, like making all the buttons work and whatnot, translates a little bit, but much less than those actual methods. The really big difference was like figuring out when everything gets called, because in game like development, it's like every frame another method gets kicked off and you're like calling that, and then so trying to figure out how to use that, because like in normal development it's just like, here's the thing, here's a method, and I just plug it in and it just gets called whenever it's needed, but it's not like running constantly. And so figuring out how to do a little more optimization and that kind of stuff on the side has been a little bit of a change, but it's all the basic building blocks.
Is the same, like the type, because what I understand from programming is like languages, right? Like speaking English or speaking Spanish or whatnot. Is the language then the same, but how it translates different? So
the website, if you're building websites, it's going to be a different language. So websites are like React or Vue or Angular or those kinds of things using TypeScript or JavaScript. It's going to be a different language than what I'm using is C#, which is the Unity game engine, or you could do C++, which is the Unreal Engine, and then Godot uses C#, C++, and like a few other languages, I think. But yeah, C# is the one that I knew how to learn, and so that was honestly the reason that I chose Unity as a game engine, because I knew how to code in C#. If I knew how to code C++, I'd probably be developing on Unreal Engine at the moment.
Yeah. You said before that you started with programming normal games, like not VR, right? How is that different from normal games to VR, or is that
it's actually
similar?
Really similar.
Okay.
A lot of people don't realize how similar like a first-person shooter game is to like a VR game, because you still have all the different, like your gun still needs to reload, your the bullets still need to reach out and hit things, and the levels, like the dialogue still needs to happen, and your characters still need to move around, and like all that stuff is the same. The only difference is the way that the player interacts with the world. And so instead of walking like within a range of like a chest and pressing A to open it, and like the chest opens by itself and does a little animation, you have to add in like a grab point for the chest and then have it hinge on its own based on how the player's moving it. And then in the background, your game has to realize, okay, the chest is open, so I need to like, add some skill points or do an animation or whatever. So it's like a little different approach, as opposed to like, it's definitely easier to do like a first person shooter or a 3D game.
So it's almost actually as if VR, the technology, is what makes the difference. It's actually putting you inside of the experience,
Exactly.
rather than
Yeah.
playing it on a computer. Oh, that's interesting, actually. And I guess there's obviously different dynamics since you're inside of the game, and playing on a computer versus being inside of the
Right.
game definitely has some
Yeah,
different.
like there's weird stuff that you don't think about when you're doing a first-person shooter, where like if you're doing a first-person shooter, you just put a collider on the person and then like all the walls, and then you can't walk through the walls. But if you do that in VR, you put a collider on the person. If they're trying to move, they won't walk through the walls. But if they move in real life and take a step, they're still going to pass through the wall.
Yeah.
Because even though they're not like moving. So you have to kind of like come up with little tricks to like, prevent them from doing stuff like that.
Yeah, interesting. I guess a lot of testing as well involved in that.
Oh, yes.
We're like, okay, this doesn't work. Got to change that.
Well, I'll even test if it's not specifically an interaction thing that I'm testing, I usually will make my game like a first-person game, where I can like it'll have a mode where I can play it in first person, where I can walk around and trigger animations and do stuff. But then if I'm testing interactions, then I can swap it back to VR, and that helps me speed up that development process a little bit.
If somebody has zero knowledge and wants to learn how to make their own game, go to your YouTube channel. But beyond that,
shameless plug.
What are and buy the course? And what are the next? What are the steps somebody would go through? Maybe let's start with that. So somebody zero knowledge starts, wants to learn how to build a VR game. What do they do? What are the steps they should take?
Yeah, and there's lots of different approaches to that, like kind of how you alluded to. So if you want to take the free approach, there's YouTube channels out there. So mine, Valem, VR with Andrew, these are all VR specific. Dilmer, and Immersive Insiders, all have like YouTube channels teaching people how to make VR, and then also AR and mixed reality. Some of them also teach that. You're also going to want to learn some coding if you don't know coding. So like Bracky's has a really good, even though he doesn't post anymore.
Is that a must, learning how to code? Because the other day I did like a couple of videos on Unity on their just to get an ID myself, and you start without coding, right? Is it a must that you learn how to code? I guess
you can get away with not coding. If you're on a small team, or if you're gonna make the game yourself, you have to know at least some basics. There is a visual scripting language, so instead of having to type all the words and like all the correct structure and syntax and everything, there's a visual scripting language called Bolt that Unity uses, and Unreal Engine uses the Blueprints system. So, but they're relatively similar, where you can drag and drop like what are effectively methods and if statements and whatnot, and kind of connect them via nodes. And then doing that, it's you can code, as it were, without having to actually know what you need to type and where to type it and all that kind of stuff. And honestly, it's a good way to kind of get into the programming mindset, because you still have to think very logically to follow those steps. But if you aren't really interested in coding and you want to like get into game development, I'd just say join a team that already has a developer, and then the developer will do all the coding stuff. And if you're an artist, you can just do all the 3D modeling or make the level design or like the UI or whatnot.
Yeah. Okay. So there's different aspects to it, but coding is definitely like in general important to learn if you want to build a game.
Yeah,
or
it's
not yourself.
It's a pretty big part of the game.
Somebody needs to know it, especially if you want to do custom stuff. Like the other day that I did that Unity thing, you're building like this first-person shooter thing, and you have a lot of these assets. But I guess if you really want to go all in and build your own stuff, or reprogram things, then
any functionality is really going to be code.
Yeah,
that you're going to need to do.
So when a new person says, "Okay, I want to go the coding route. I want to build my own game," they've watched all the YouTube videos. Like they need to learn Unity, I guess. That's or Unreal Engine. You said.
Yep. So there's, and I'm actually, so the free like process you can do just all on YouTube. I actually have made a course that the attempt is to do all in one. You don't need to know anything about game development or anything about coding or programming. And by the end of the course, you'll know how to make multiplayer VR games and publish them. And so it's a pretty ambitious course. And I'm almost done with the first 2 modules. So the way I've broken it up is first you learn Unity, and then you learn how to do C# coding. And then for the next few modules, we talk about like VR interactions, how to, throw things and pick things up and move around and, all that kind of stuff. And then towards the end, we get into talking about multiplayer, how to publish your game to stores like Steam or Itch or App Lab or SideQuest or all the different places you can put your game. And then finally is like how to get a job. So how to make money, either doing crowdfunding or getting a publisher or just publishing your game yourself, that kind of stuff.
I love that.
So those are the kind of the steps that I recommend someone go through, and I've tried to put it all together in one course, which is fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's like and I've heard you saying this in another interview as well. Like, that your aim is really to build up like a school, right? And I don't know if it's specifically if it was on this or that it's also another ambition of yours, but
that one's a little side project. That one's
okay. Cool. What's that?
That one I need to work up a little bit of a team. That's going to be a big project. But yeah, you imagine, for someone who hasn't heard that interview, imagine you sit down in a schoolroom, but instead you're like at home wearing a VR headset, and you put the headset on. You're just in a classroom, and then the teacher walks into the classroom. For the virtual classroom, you can walk around, you can see, or you can look around, you can see all your like fellow classmates' avatars and talk to them and whatnot. But then your teacher walks in, says, "Okay, we're gonna go explore the Colosseum in Rome." Snaps his fingers, the classroom melts away, the Colosseum fades in, and you're standing in the middle of the Colosseum, and he's like, "All right, your assignment for today is go talk to a gladiator, go talk to one of the servants, and then go find Caesar or something." And then like your little markers pop up, and there you go. Now you have to like go do all the objectives, and like that's school. Like how cool would that be?
That's amazing.
And so that's kind of my vision for a better education system, because especially in America, I feel like the education system is not the best. And so using new technology to kind of redefine that, help make it better.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of that. I quit high school when I was 15 years old. So I went to entrepreneurial route pretty early on. And, I was very bored in school. And Elon Musk said this multiple times in an interview, like school should make you a lifelong learner. And I believe like it's fun is like a huge part of that. So I definitely feel that. Just to go back a step towards the Unity part. I love that that your goal is really to take someone, basically, if somebody has the idea, like I want to become a game developer, they can literally go into your course, do the whole thing, and they're like bridged towards being able to have a job and actually do it, right? So I really love that. What is your take on if somebody says, okay, I will go and build my own game? Obviously, coding and programming and everything is one part of it, and I'm curious from your perspective, what are the steps necessary? Maybe a good game is pretty broad because there's so many elements to it, but do you have some steps or ideas about what is unnecessary in order to get a game together and build it?
The first part that I recommend people do, which is actually often overlooked, is marketing. So if you're planning on building a game all the way to the finish and selling it, I would recommend go ahead from the beginning, make a Instagram page or a Twitter or something for your game, or it could just be your own, social medias, YouTube channel, and start just posting progress updates. Even if nobody's watching, create kind of that backlog of, okay, so I did this today, and it doesn't have to be boring and dry. It could be like, oh, this is a weird bug and I filmed it and it's really funny, so I'm going to post a little like GIF of it. that kind of stuff. And so like the marketing is, I think, really important, especially if you're going to try to make a living off of that. And just how did you problem solve this issue that you ran into and whatnot. And then more practically speaking, so like if you kind of have that in the back of your head constantly of like, oh, I could add this, you just tweet, it would be cool if I added this in, or I'm planning on doing this or whatnot.
Yeah, and I love that because it's directly building up a community.
Exactly.
Right. And you can test because maybe, the idea that you have is amazing and everybody loves it. And maybe it can get tweaking, right? So direct that feedback.
You get that feedback loop really,
exactly,
it started initially. Yep.
I love that.
And then, in a year or 2 years or however long it takes you to make the game, by the, that point, if you've been posting consistently, then you should have a pretty decent little following that can really, that could be the difference between you getting on the featured page of Steam or not, is based on the amount of people who want to jump in and buy the game right off the bat or put it on their wish list or whatnot. So having that marketing aspect like visible from the beginning is pretty important. But then, like, more practically speaking, I've always been, so there's two different like approaches you could kind of take to building a game. One is like purely mechanics based. So if I want to make a game that has a grappling hook in it and is 0G, it's like a sci-fi game that involves some kind of grappling hook or whatever, then I would make just like a very basic, have a plane, have maybe a few cubes and a grappling hook, and like just do pure mechanic and then see if it's fun. So like find the fun in the game. Because if it's fun and your game like looks terrible, then if you like, work it up and make the visuals nice, then like, okay, it's fun, but then it also looks really cool, and like you can interplay those. And then later down the road, you can add the story, or you can add, if it's multiplayer, I would add multiplayer from the beginning, because that's just kind of what you have to do. But like if you get that mechanic going and find the fun in the mechanic, then you can kind of build your game around 1 or 2 or 3 mechanics. Then it becomes easy to just kind of add in more story elements or whatnot. The other approach would be like a design approach, and I kind of go with this if I'm not feeling super inspired. So like the mechanics is good, but then sometimes you can just get bogged down. And so I'll usually swap back and forth between doing purely mechanics-based stuff and then design stuff of like a storyline or like a level or something, because it'll get like, I'll just get kind of hung up and like not inspired, and I don't really want to like work on this anymore. And so I'll kind of shift gears and make it pretty and make it look cool. And then when I jump back and start working on the mechanics, I'm like, okay, this is more fun because I can actually kind of see the game start to take shape. And so I'll kind of zigzag back and forth between that until a game gets more or less finished.
Love that. Yeah, having that feedback loop is minimal viable product, right? I think in the marketing world it's a big thing, but you're actually not bringing it out. Or well, you could by sharing it on socials, but if actually for yourself.
Exactly, you could show screenshots and little video clips, or you could even do like a private alpha access to like all your early like followers and stuff. Get them to jump in, play the game, and then you can make tweaks.
I love that. That's super cool. I've actually seen a book of there was a book and an app released from Expect You to Die, and from Shell Games. It is. They talk a lot about this as well, about having that feedback loop really close. So you bring out like a prototype, out you try it out, and then you start like adding on more details. And I really think that's so important before like building out the whole thing like 2 years down the line.
Exactly. That's that was like the old way of building games, but nowadays, like with social media and just the internet in general, like being able to push your game out, get feedback, bring it back, make changes, and then push your game out again, the faster you can get that loop like tightened down, then like the faster you can make changes and the better your game is going to get over time.
Yeah. If somebody, how long will your course be? And then not just to promote your course here, but as well to have an understanding of somebody with zero knowledge starts and wants to build its own game. Like, how long will it take before they can actually build something? And I'm I know that with practice you get better. So it's not like you do the course and hey, now you're a game developer. It's actually practicing,
exactly.
building it,
There's
testing it, right?
Monkey see, monkey do effect, where if you like, have the course up on one screen and then you're building it on the other screen, you're just kind of copy pasting and not really actually learning anything. So I've added in like a few challenges in there where I don't actually tell you how to do like the thing, but I'm like, okay, from here you can take some of the stuff we've already learned and do this thing that's a little more complicated, just to kind of get your brain going. But if you're interested, of course, it's called VRCreator Academy. And that's the website, just VRCreatorAcademy.com. And it's 8 modules, going from very basic Unity all the way to multiplayer optimization, publishing, and making money off of your game, your VR game specifically. And it's gonna be a big course. So I finished the first module and I think it's like 2 hours, and so that one's like the smallest one. So it's gonna be, so out of 8, it's probably gonna be like 20, maybe 30 hours long to finish. And then if you kind of pace that out, you can, depending on how much time you have, a couple months to finish it all. And then go off and make your own game. But I'm trying to really just break it down into the very basic, bare minimum stuff that you need to know, without any fluff and whatnot, which is the big difference from the YouTube channel. Is the YouTube channel, if I want to teach you one thing, it's going to be like a 30-minute video where I do the setup and then I tell you how to do it, and then we do it for this one particular thing, whereas the course is a bunch of like 5 to 10 minute videos of like, here's one specific thing. I assume you already watched the previous videos. All right, let's move on to the next one.
Awesome. That's really exciting. I think also with the future coming, I saw a video of you on YouTube, like, are you too early or are you too late? And I think we're always early, we're always late. Depends how you want to look at it.
Exactly.
But VR is really like, we're really early. Like it's just
still early. Here in the next 5 years, like I think if you're learning now,
it goes quick.
Like now is a good time to learn VR and get used to it. Because within the next 5 years or so, like Meta's losing a lot of stock, market share and whatnot, if you're following the stock market and whatnot. But the stock market's really only focused on like, are you going to make money the next quarter? But Meta's doing like a long-term play, so I have faith in that it's going to come back up, but it's like a couple years down the line, not like a couple quarters.
Yeah, I think personally, Mark gets really underestimated with what he's doing. Like I think he's really like far ahead of what most people.
A lot of people are looking at it, and it's very early, and you're like, what are you doing? It's I always say it's like the early iPhone, like not even version like 3 iPhone. It's like version 1 or 2 iPhone that like nobody has and like nobody's really heard of. And then all the games that are being made right now are just like the early iPhone apps, where it's like, you had the lighter app where you flick your phone because it has like a sensor in it now, and like the lighter flips open and turns on. Like nobody knew how like powerful the iPhone was going to be and like what apps they could have on it. So all the apps were just like kind of gimmicky. And that's kind of where VR is right now. A lot of the apps are just very arcadey, and like it's just very games, and like they're small games and not very complex or like high end, and but we're getting there. It's like trending upwards, and the games are getting better and longer and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. And if people would listen to this and have never tried Oculus, I've tried it the first time like a year ago, maybe now, and I was mind blown. Like I really thought we were like not here yet. It will be like 5 or 10 years away from where we're now, but it's really good already. Actually, like. It's really shows the potential. So really, really excited about the future. What, let's say for a team like us, right? We've got an idea for a game, right? So what? You gave a glimpse. Start with a prototype, or what would you do, and who would you hire in your team? Like, who do we need?
Yeah, I would get initially. So I run a VR consulting agency with a partner. And we hire out different talent. Companies will come to us. They want like a game to market their company, or there's like enterprise level people, and we have kind of generalist developers, and then we have designers. And so usually someone will fall into one of those two categories. And so designers are going to be people who make the 3D models. They can kind of position the scene out, make the scene look nice, and kind of give that level design. And then you have the developers that do most of the mechanics and like the behind the scenes stuff. So how does the game flow? Like, when are things triggered? How does the score work, or that kind of thing? And so having at least one solid developer. And then if your team is mostly design, then I would just say make one really good fun mechanic, and then you can make like a really good story around that. And then that could be a good game. Like, it doesn't have to be super complex. Lots of different things going on. Like, there's lots of really good games out there that are really just like primarily storytelling games, and you just kind of walk around and click on things, but it like has a really good story. Like, if like Firewatch, I think, is like a super good story game, but it's just very simple. Like, there's not much you do. You just walk around, you click things, and like that's the whole game.
Yeah, and even without story, like Superhot, for example, and I've really love the game. How well, I don't know from a programming perspective if it's complex, but
that one's you have a shooting mechanic, and then like you can punch and you can throw things, and then you have time involved, but it's mainly a story game, like very easy mechanics.
Yeah, but super fun. I was playing another game the other day, and like 15 minutes in, it was like a world, more of a bigger world than you remember the name. And after 15 minutes, I was so bored. I was stuck in the same place, trying to walk around, but it just didn't grab me. And like Superhot and stuff, where you start directly, and it's really really simple. It can be a lot more fun sometimes. And when hiring developers, what are typical mistakes developers are making? Are there certain things that you say like, these things I would definitely pay attention to when hiring a developer?
Honestly, you just kind of let them make something for you. Like, you just have like an idea and like see how well they approach it. And even if it's something that's a little more complicated than they're used to or they're able to do, like being able to watch them troubleshoot issues is kind of the main way. I'm of the mind where it's like hire fast, fire fast. So like, I don't want to like take forever to hire someone. I'll like give them an interview and like see if they're good. A lot of the people we've hired have actually just been people from my Discord, and then now people coming through the course of like who've been showing off their work and active in the community, and I'll reach out to them and be like, hey, I've seen your stuff, like it looks pretty interesting. Usually if the developer has a portfolio, that's like one of the best indicators of like and especially if it's a portfolio of stuff that like includes the mechanics you're looking for. So if you're like trying to make a Superhot looking game, if they've done like a recreation of Superhot, and they have like a portfolio of like itch.io games of like game jams they've participated in, then like that's a good way to like find a pretty decent developer. And then I just hire them fast, like do an interview, hire them, and then if they don't work out in like a couple weeks, then we're just like, all right, well, this isn't really working out, so move on to someone else. Like,
would you work on a freelance base with them, or try to find somebody to get them in house, or do you like get them first freelance to build something and then
we usually do we'll always start with contract work, so it's just like an hourly kind of thing. I'll like give you a project, you have 2 weeks, and then whether you get another project or not is based on how that one goes, kind of thing. So usually it's contract work, and like I'll still hire you 40 hours it like if I want to, or if that like meets the schedule or whatever. Sometimes it's 20 hours a week or something. And then like if you don't have enough capital to like just have someone go full blast, or even if you don't have enough work for them to do like a full 40 hours a week, you can hire people for 10-20 hours a week. And then if it works, then we're working on hiring a couple of at least one developer, one designer that have been working for us for a couple months, pretty consistently and well. And like we're just working on getting them full time now.
If somebody wants to build an experience or game on a low budget, are there, what are your thoughts around that? I'm curious to, especially since you're coming from
the Unity Asset Store actually is a really good resource for, you can find a lot of code, like pre-built code in there. So if you're this goes back to like, if you don't have a developer on your team, you can grab an asset like AutoHand or Hurricane VR, or VR Interaction Framework, VR Toolkit. Those are like the 4 primary ones on the Unity Asset Store that are basically like almost like pre-built VR frameworks that you can use. And then you can be like, okay, well, I want this object to be grabbable, so I'm just going to drop that the grabbable component on this object. And then usually inside of there's like events you can like hook into just from within Unity without having to do any coding. And so that might be actually the best way to, if you have a little bit of development knowledge, or at least know how like events work and, have a general understanding of Unity and all that kind of stuff, then like trying out one of those frameworks would probably be pretty good. And like, even if the framework costs you like $80 or even $80 per, developer you have, then it's still going to be cheaper than, hiring a developer for however much an hour and having them work for even a whole week. Like, even if you can get like a really cheap developer for like, $30 an hour, if they work for a whole week, it's going to be more expensive than you buying a whole framework for every single one of your designers. So,
and those frameworks are already built by other developers, and they've uploaded them in the store, right? So, could think of plugins. Yeah.
So the idea behind those is they make all of the interactions that you may want. So, and like just depending on which one you get, they have different interactions. But like they have a climbing system of like being able to fly, using guns, opening drawers, opening doors, like all these like little interactions that you would want to use, like joysticks and cranks and snapping objects to certain spots and there's a bunch of different stuff.
That's super useful. I think in WordPress you have these plugins as well that people keep reselling, right? Instead of like
it's very similar to that. Like a little framework where you can you have probably 80% of the 90% of the interactions you would want, and then you just kind of build a game around it.
Have you have any experience with building an AR as well?
A little bit. I think that's kind of the thing. Like, I think AR or like mixed reality in particular is going to be like the future. But VR is just much more fun. I think VR is just so much like cooler. You can do so many more things. Like, I eventually do think like mixed reality, like if you can get a really Apple or Meta can get like a really lightweight kind of glasses that everyone will wear, like that'll replace cell phones, it'll replace TVs.
That was my question. Like, why do you think it's that is more of the future?
It's like nobody's gonna need a cell phone anymore. Like you basically already have a metaverse that you walk around with. You're already in it. Like people kind of misunderstand the word metaverse. Like they think it's just some kind of VR world like Ready Player One that everyone like taps into. But like you're already connected to the metaverse. You just like there's a bunch of different channels, and like so Instagram is like a part of the metaverse, and Facebook, and then like YouTube, and like it's just the internet, like the metaverse, and it's just like how plugged in are you? And VR is just like a different layer of being immersed into the internet. And so like the metaverse is already kind of here. There's not like one metaverse, and I think that's just how it's going to be. Like even in VR, there's not going to be like one platform that everyone's on all the time. Like there's going to be lots of different apps you jump around to, just like on your phone. But I just think the phone will get replaced, and it'll be a glasses or a headset or something.
Why do you
or contact lenses or whatever?
And Maybe Elon Musk combines Neuralink into that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like the hardware will change, but it's still gonna be very similar to how you use your phone right now.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's always like a lot of people are really scared for this, or at least that's what I experience sometimes when I speak with my friends about like the metaverse, and they're like, "Oh, I don't like that. I want to be in the real world," But at the same time, they're like 4 hours scrolling on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you want to be in the real world, but you're on Instagram a lot.
They're already there, man.
You're already in the metaverse.
Yeah, and even to my mom, like I live in Spain. My mom lives in the Netherlands, and I was like, I can't wait till it's there. And she's like, no, but we're gonna live in the. I was like, yeah, but you can sit literally next to me on the couch every day, like you can literally like be here and more have of a presence feeling. And now it's like, I can't even imagine like where that goes to. Why did you think VR is more fun now? Do you think in the future that will also be like that, or do you think AR could become more fun? Because the other day I spoke with my brother about this, and he was like, yeah, but imagine you put up your AR glasses and you're like playing in a game or an experience, and like everything around you will become part of it. So let's say you're fighting like Superhot, and like they're literally now in your living room coming at you, right? And you can like, if you go behind the wall, maybe they like break through the wall and your whole wall just crumbles, and it's like, like there's like endless possibilities that could be there. But yeah, but why do you think VR is more fun?
And that's why I think mixed reality is ultimately going to win out. And it's just going to get to the point where all devices are a mixed reality type device. So like right now, just based on hardware limitations, we're limited to either VR or like the Quest Pro now has that color pass through, so you can still do some kind of like mixed reality type deal. And we're just kind of converging. Like some companies are approaching it from the AR side, some companies like Meta are approaching it from the VR side, and we're just going to meet in the middle somewhere, and that's just going to be the tech everyone uses. But VR I think is fun because you can just immerse someone in like a whole different world, whereas AR right now there's just a bunch of like limitations in the technology is more limited in the AR space, because it's like you have a very like small, like if you've ever used a HoloLens, it's like you're putting an index card in front of your face, and like that's the amount of real estate you have to use for like your AR stuff. And whereas VR, like you have a full like range of vision, like based on whatever the field of view of your headset is, and so there's just much more you can do, and like you feel much more immersed. AR is getting there, and it will eventually get to the point where like if you want to play a game, like or you put the headset on and it's like, okay, here's just a bunch of portals you can walk through, and then whenever you walk through that portal, now you're in that game, and it feels very like what's the word for it? Like it like you almost don't even realize you're putting a VR headset on. It's like you just walk in and like the world kind of comes around you, and now you're in that world, and it and I can't think of the correct word for it, but
exciting. I'm really excited about this space, the VR space, the AR space, and everything that's upcoming. I'm a huge game head myself, so I can't wait to see what's next. If people want to find more of you, what are the best places? A YouTube channel, I'll put that into the description for sure for people to find you. Is that the best place?
All my social medias, I'm just Justin P Barnett, Barnett. Twitter, I'm most active on YouTube, so I've not been super consistent on YouTube recently because I've been actually adding videos to the course. But just the YouTube channel is just youtube.com/Justin P Barnett. And if you want to check out the course, it's the VRCreatorAcademy.com, or it's going to be in the description of all the YouTube videos. So if you want to check that out, we're going to be doing a Black Friday sale here at the end of November, where it's going to be relatively cheap if anybody's interested. VR's coming along. It's fun.
Are you doing this full time, by the way, the course and everything, or are you still?
I do a lot of things. So I have the YouTube channel. I have the course now, which is like a whole other company. And then I have a company that the VR consulting company. It's called Cyber Hub Syndicate, with a partner that I run. So it's a consulting and a software company. So we're building like an open source multiplayer VR template that people will eventually be able to just use to like start their games. And
Nice.
it'll be kind of like one of those frameworks we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So it'll be super easy to just like add to your project, and now you have lots of interactions, and you just like tell it what like multiplayer system you want to use, and you're off to the races. So we're kind of working on that in the background. It's not released yet. And then on top of all that, I work on a 9 to 5 at the moment still. That is just like a normal software that's not even VR related.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting. Wow, you're doing a lot. And you have a little one on the way, I think I saw on Instagram.
I do. I have a little boy due here at the end of December.
Oh, wow. Nearly.
Our first.
Wow. Cool. Well, congrats already. I just got my baby just turned 1 year old, so yeah.
Nice.
New dad as well. I would still see it as a new dad. The time flies.
Yeah.
So. Oh, and exciting stuff for you. I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it was a pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah, same, man. Thanks for sharing. Guys, if you're watching the podcast, I realize I don't watch much in the camera, but if you guys are watching this, go and check out the links. Go and watch the YouTube channel. It's super useful. I've learned a ton of it. So with that said, thank you all for listening. Justin, it was a pleasure. Good luck, on your new journey from December on. Enjoy the last month and a half. Without the little one there.
Exactly.
It's gonna be good times for sure. So thanks for your time, Justin. Rest up, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.